Okay, hello everyone. My name is Jinmyoung Cho. I'm an associate professor at St. Louis University of School of Medicine. Today, I'm talking about how to support all the others participating in clinical trials with an interprofessional primary care approach. Like other presentation, this project is supported by HRSA. Here are our goals for this presentation. First, you will understand the main barriers that all the others experience when they decide whether to join clinical trials. Second, you will see how the age-friendly health systems 4M's framework can guide us in supporting safe and appropriate participation. And third, you will learn about how primary care and interprofessional teams can really support all the others participating in clinical research. As an evaluation purpose, you can see the QR code for the brief survey. So please complete the survey. That'll help us report your participation to HRSA. Before we start, I want you to take a moment to answer these quick questions. Please scan the QR code to complete the pre-questions. You'll see these same questions again at the end of the session, but for now, just answer honestly based on where you are today. There are no right or wrong answers. Same as other presentations, the age-friendly health system frameworks guide us this presentation. The 4M's, what matters, medication, mentation, and mobility fits naturally conversation about clinical trial participation. When we are helping a patient understand the study, reviewing medication, or coordinating logistics, the 4M's give us a structure that's meaningful and easy to apply. So you will see how it works throughout this presentation. Let's start with why all the others are so important in clinical trials. Our old other population, those aged 65 and older, is growing rapidly and now represent about 20% of entire US population. That alone is a major shift in our healthcare landscape. And as many of you know you're from work, all the others are more likely to live with multiple chronic conditions, frailty, mobility limitation, and polypharmacy. But the issues are many treatments that we use haven't actually been well studied in all the others. Even though some treatments are targeted for all the others, actual trials are often underrepresented or sometimes completely excluded all the others. And that underrepresentation creates real safety gaps. Things like medication side effects, dosing needs, or interactions among other medications can look very different with an 80-year-old person than with a healthy 40-year-old volunteer. But without their participation, we don't get the accurate data that we need to guide safer and more effective care. This is where primary care providers and then care teams play a huge role. They are often the most trusted source of health information for all the others, and their encouragement or assurance can make all the difference when someone is deciding whether to participate in clinical trial. So ensuring all the others are represented in research is not just a scientific issue. It's more like a quality of care issue, which influence directly in day-to-day care work. Now, I'd like to focus on a clinical trial. A clinical trial is a structured research study that tries to answer a specific health questions, like, does this treatment work? Is it safe? Is it better than what we are already doing? These studies involve the real people as participants, and they follow very strict safety and ethical guidelines. Nothing in a trial happens causally. Every step is planned, monitored, and approved before a single person enrolls. The clinical trials can test all kinds of medical approaches. We often think only of new medications, but the trials also evaluate devices, procedures, diagnostic tests, or even lifestyle or behavior interventions. And finally, clinical trials are team-supported process. Researchers, clinicians, nurses, and staff all work together. Primary care teams are often the first to identify a patient who might be a good fit or introduce the trial to a patient who will be a beneficiary from the trial. So clinical trials are about learning how to provide safer and more effective care for a patient we serve. This slide will show different types of clinical trials. Not all clinical trial is about testing a new drug. Many studies focus on prevention, screening, or improving daily functioning. So understanding these categories help us to recognize which trials might be the best fit for our all others patients. The first one is treatment trials. These are what most people think of when they hear clinical trial. Treatment trials test new drugs, devices, procedures, or combination of treatments. They also compare new approaches to the current standard of care. These trials help us figure out whether something truly works better or more safely. Next are prevention trials. These trials look at how we can prevent a disease from developing or prevent it from coming back. They might involve the medication, vaccines, vitamins, or lifestyle changes. For all the others, prevention trials can be very meaningful, especially when we try to reduce the risk for chronic conditions or slow decline. Diagnostic trials is another type. They investigate new or refined ways in diagnosis of conditions. The goal of these trials is often to detect a disease earlier or more accurately. This is especially important in geriatrics, where early detection can significantly impact geriatric patients' functioning and their quality of life. Then screening trials are closely related to diagnostic trials. Screening trials focus on finding conditions before symptoms appear. So for example, they may test better screening tools for memory disorders, cancers, or cardiovascular diseases. And these trials help identify problems as early and as safely as possible. And then finally, quality of life or supportive care trials. These are incredibly important for all others. The goal of these trials is improve comfort, manage symptoms, support daily functioning, and promote well-being. They focus on helping people live in better conditions rather than curing diseases. So altogether, these 5 types of trials cover a wide range of patients' needs, from prevention to diagnosis to treatment and to supportive care. So knowing different kinds of trials help us connect the patient with options that fits their goals, values, and health needs. Next, we can look at the different phases of clinical trials. This slide will show where a treatment is in the development process and what researchers try to learn about at each step. Most clinical trials have 4 phases. Phase 1 is the very first time a new drug or treatment is given to people. The main goal here is safety. At this stage, researchers want to understand how the treatment works in the body, what doses are safe, and what side effects might show up. Then these studies usually include a small number of participants. Then once the treatment appears safe enough, the study can move into phase 2. The focus of phase 2 is effectiveness. Researchers are looking to see if this treatment actually works. Safety is still important, but the phase 2 trials help us understand whether the treatment has a real clinical benefit. Then if the results look promising, treatment can move to phase 3. This is where we really put it to the test. So phase 3 trials involved a large number of participants at many different locations. These studies compare the new treatment to the current standard of care, so we can see whether it's better, safer, or offers some benefits. So the evidence from phase 3 is critical for the FDA's approval for the treatment. Then finally, once the treatment is approved and available on the market, we move into phase 4. Phase 4 trials collect real-world information about how the treatment works in everyday practice and in larger and more diverse population, including all the others with multiple conditions or medication. These studies can help identify unusual side effects, drug interaction, or long-term outcomes that might not show up in earlier phases. So overall, this entire process is designed to make sure treatments are safe and effective as possible. As for everyone, definitely include all the others. So far, we covered some basic concepts about clinical trials. Now let's look at why all the others are often underrepresented in clinical trials. There are several reasons at different levels. The first one is about patient concern. Many of the others have long-standing fears or misunderstanding about clinical trials. Sometimes they may think like, I'll be guinea pig. I'm too old for this, or it's gonna be very expensive. Then others may have multiple medication concerns, complex health conditions, or heavily rely on caregivers. So that can make the idea of joining a study feel overwhelming. So even a trial might be a great fit, these worries can stop the conversation before it begins. Then providers and then care team face their own challenges. Typically, visits are short and documentation or paperwork is time consuming. And not all clinicians are aware of available trials. And then sometimes some clinicians often assume that the patients won't be interested. So all of this indicates it's easy to miss research opportunities. And at the health system level, many older adults struggle with transportation or mobility. Outreach from research team doesn't always reach those who are ready for trials. Some people may be homebound or may have limited technology issues. So on top of that, social factors like cost concern, those kind of things also can make the involvement to trials even harder. So when we put all this together, the underrepresentation of all the others in clinical trials is not about a lack of willingness. It's a mixture of personal worries, clinic pressures, and system level barriers. So this is exactly why interprofessional teams are important, because each part of the system can help remove one piece of this puzzle. Now we are ready to get all the others involved in clinical trials. But one of the most common questions from participants is, am I going to be a guinea pig? This slide is designed to answer that question by showing how clinical trials stay safe and fair. On the left side, you can see the safety protection with a few layers around it. First, there is IRB oversight. An institutional review board, or IRB, is an independent committee that reviews every study before it starts and keep eyes on it while it is going on. Their job is to make sure the study is ethical and that the risks are reasonable to protect study participants. And every trial follows standard protocol. That means there is a written plan that specifies exactly who can join, what will be done, how often things happen, and when the study needs to be paused or stopped. Then we also have ongoing monitoring. Research teams carefully watch lab results, symptoms, and any side effects from participation. If safety concerns pops up, they can make a change quickly. And then very importantly, participants always have a right to withdraw. Even after signing consent, they can say, I've changed my mind and leave the study without losing their regular medical care. And then in the middle, you can see informed consent. This is another key protection. Before participants decide if the study is right for them, they are given clear information about the purpose of study, what will happen, and what possible risks and benefits are there. Then on the right side, we shift from safety to fairness. Control groups and then placebos are how we compare a new approach to what we are already doing in usual care. Without that comparison, we cannot really tell if the new option actually helps. And then lastly, there's a randomization, which means being assigned to a group by chance. Randomization helps keep things fair. It prevents us from only putting healthier or more motivated patients into the new treatment and makes the result more trustworthy. Then when we talk about clinical trials with all the others, our goal is to help them understand the benefits and risks with a focus on what matters most to them, not just to convince them to join the trial. So this slide will highlight some potential benefits and risks when they participate in clinical trials. So the first benefit is some trials can offer access to innovative or specialized treatment that are not widely available yet, which is exciting. But because of that, participants are often monitored more closely with more frequent check-in and labs. And then they are also supported by experienced research and the clinical teams. So with them, they typically get a very thorough medication and health review. Some studies also reimburse for time or travel, which is a kind of financial benefit. And then when you work with all the others, many wanting to participate in the study because they value the idea that their participation might improve care for future generations. But however, we need to be very honest about the risks and then consideration. First, we need to clarify that new treatments may have unknown side effects or risks. And then some trials ask extra visit, labs, or questionnaire, which can make all the others overwhelmed. Then attending session can be extra burden if they need extra transportation or having caregivers involved. And another consideration is some participants may receive a placebo or standard care only because the randomization is applied in most trials. Then this indicates that there is no guarantee of a personal benefit and then clinical benefit as well. Then finally, trials usually require sticking close to the study plan, which can be challenging for some people. On this slide, let's look at the big picture of what a clinical trial looks like and how 4Ms work for each step. We start with awareness and interest. This is when all the others or caregivers first hear about a trial, maybe in a primary care visit from nurse or through the community outreach. Physicians, nurses, or community people will provide a clear and simple explanation about the trial. Then this stage is related to what matters. So we should consider, does this fit the patient goals and values? Then if all the others or caregivers is interested in participating in the trial, then study team will contact to the potential participants and collect more detailed information like medical history, medication, diagnosis, and go through the consent process. This step is called screening and consent. At this step, medication and mentation are key. Study team will make sure participants understand what the study involves and carefully review their medication list for interactions and then polypharmacy issues. Then once someone is found eligible and still wants to participate, then it'll move to enrollment. This is the point where they officially signed up and then assigned to a study group. So practically, we are asking, can this person realistically do what the study requires? So this is where we should pay attention to mobility. So we should think about transportation, walking ability, fatigue, and caregiver support for study participation. And then next step is we have during the study. This is active phase with visit, test, phone calls or video calls, or medication management. The whole interprofessional team is involved. And then at this stage, all 4 M's are in action. To ensure participants are safe and realistic, we should keep checking what matters most, reviewing their medication, watching meditation, and adjust plans for mobility and function. And then final stage is completion and follow-up. At the end of the study, result and then experience are reviewed. Medications are adjusted if needed, and care transitions fully back to usual care if changing. We come back to what matters and then talk about next steps, how to fold what we've learned back into ongoing care, and then whether other supports or studies make sense. So this journey tells us that the clinical trial enrollment is not just a one-time decision, but it is a process where 4 M's and an interprofessional team shows up at every stage. Okay, so far we learned about the basics in clinical trial. So now I want to go through a real example of a trial that all the others and the caregivers are involved. So this trial is called the D-Care. The purpose of the care study was to compare different models of dementia care and see which model best supports for dementia patients and their caregivers. The participations are all the others living with dementia and then their caregivers. And as a pair, they were recruited from several healthcare systems across the United States. Then participants were randomly assigned to one of 3 groups. So the first group received the usual care. This means whatever the dementia care they would typically receive from existing clinician. And then second group received community-based dementia care, which was delivered by social workers, nurses, or therapists through community organizations. And then the third group stayed with health system-based dementia care, which read by advanced practice dementia care specialists who are working closely with primary care and then other clinicians. So on this study, researchers followed these pairs of patient and caregivers over time and focused on a few key outcomes, including how severe dementia patient behavior and psychological symptoms were, and how much caregiver strain they felt. I think this is a great example of a clinical trial directly involved every day primary care and then community practice. Then here is how the D-Care study lays out through the lens of the 4 M's. So under what matters, the D-Care study emphasized helping people stay safely at home and supporting caregivers' goals with the structured help for day-to-day dementia care challenge. And then for medication, primary care providers went through regular medication review with special attention to psychotropic medication and the regimen for other chronic conditions. And then mentation was the center of the interventions. So they provided ongoing focus on cognition, behavior, and mood for dementia patients. And for caregivers, the study provided a number of resources to manage agitation, sleep problems, and other behavior issues that make dementia care challenging. And then with a focus on preventing falls, injuries, and avoidable hospitalization, mobility shows up in the support of function and safety at home in the community. So all of these depended on interprofessional collaboration. Physicians, advanced practice provider, nurses, social workers, therapists, and community partners, they all work together to make these studies successful. Okay, let's wrap up with a few key takeaways. On this session, first we learned all the others are essential to clinical trials, but they're still underrepresented due to some barriers at the different levels, which creates safety and effectiveness gaps in the treatment we use every day. Then second, as a practical lens, we went through how the age-friendly 4Ms can be applied to each step in clinical trials, from identifying a good fit to completing the participation. And then third, primary care and the interprofessional teams can play a central role in clinical trial for all the others. They all work together to make clinical trials successful, from identifying potential participants to supporting consent, participation, and follow-up. And fourth, we cannot overstate the importance of clear and compassionate communication. It is a critical role how we work with all the others and their caregivers for clinical trial and support their decision. And then finally, our goal is a safe, voluntary, and value-based participation. Supporting them for the best decision is our top priority, whether that ends up being yes or no to clinical trial. Okay, now we've finished the session, so please take a moment to answer these same questions using QR code in this slide. It helps us understand how you learned, and then confidence may change it, and then it gives you a chance to reflect on what you're taking away from this session. Then this includes a couple of references that I use for this presentation. Once again, here is a QR code for our continuing education. So if you would like to get in touch with me, my email address is included with a number of wonderful resources for our SLU Family Center for Healthy Aging. Thank you for your time joining us for this conversation about the clinical trials for all others. And then thank you for supporting our Geriatric Workforce Enhancement Program.